sure. It's Big Daddy Weave with a song titled I Know. And of course, ahead of that one, I played you a song titled Amazing Grace by Rihanna Now. Sure, God is good. All the time and all the time, God is good. I've got my sister joining me on the other side of this. Nogwazi, welcome. How are you doing?
Yay, it's a beautiful morning.
Yay!
It's a Cape Town. Welcome, viewers, listeners, to Unlocked at Nokwazi, right? At In Season with Sake
Mhm.
at 107.5. It's such a beautiful, beautiful morning, and you look absolutely amazing. You are just radiant and glowing, and you've got that CCFM
Oh.
glow. You know what I mean?
I love that. The CCFM glow. I love it. All right. So we are already far behind. I want us to jump right straight into it. Today, you are unlocking how to conduct research on your clients and also to create a value proposition. What is a customer value proposition, Nogwaz, and how does it impact businesses and buyers of goods and services?
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So, a customer value proposition, let's think about it this way, right? Amazing entrepreneurs, are you ready to unlock the markets, to unlock the marketplace and access markets and access capital and access information so that we can build and grow our amazing businesses, right? So, a customer value
Mhm.
proposition, right? Okay. The adage, if you cannot measure, you cannot manage, right? So, what you cannot
Mm.
tangibly measure, you really cannot manage. This also applies to the process of selling customer value, right?
Yeah.
So if you cannot quantify and document value, you do not know what value you're delivering. You therefore could not
Mhm.
price nor communicate this value in that particular perspective, right? The most
Yeah.
important aspect to look at the approach of value of a solution is in terms of the benefit that a customer will realize relative to the cost required to implement that solution, right? So when you
Mhm.
think about a customer value proposition, you're really, let's talk about it from a financial customer value proposition, right? So the
Yeah.
customer's actual financial performance is relative to industry performance. That's how they operate. They are in their little business doing whatever they're doing, whether they're a big corporate or government, whatever they are, but there's also the
Mhm.
industry performance. Right. So when you look at the stats in terms of the performance of the top 100 companies on the JSE listed, right? So it will tell you about financial sector. You'll always see that description. That's the sector where that particular company is playing in. You'll see retail,
Yeah.
you'll see manufacturing. Those are the industry sectors. And when you look at it, if we look at the total gross domestic product, the contribution of the income that is generated for South Africa, right? That's the gross domestic product, whatever we sell and we buy and we procure and all of those are the great things. How those are basically contributors to nation building, right? You will see
Mhm.
industries that do exceptionally well. You'll see financial sectors, they'll tell you the contribution. You'll see retail sector, you'll see manufacturing, you'll see all
Sure.
sorts of subsectors even within those ones, right? So when
Mhm.
you are developing customer value proposition, you need to know in terms of who is this client. That's what we talked about when we were talking about how to grow sales in the session last
Yeah.
week, right? In terms of knowing who this client is, you need to know what value are you going to deliver to them, right? And so this performance that we're looking at is the basis for quantifying the benefits and savings of what you're going to offer them, right? You can measure it in this particular way. A lot of people will say in a customer value proposition, we will save you costs. Our value is we're in business, so we can deliver the service or we can give you this product, so we can save you as a potential client costs, right? What
Yeah.
does that mean? It's a sweeping statement. You need to be able to quantify and say we're able to going to be able to impact your production output, right? We're going to
Mhm.
help you generate sales when you buy services from us because we're selling this CRM, this customer relationship product that will allow you to be able to measure your sales. So in essence, you'll
Yeah.
be able to generate sales as a business, for example. You're going to impact production costs or profit generated. So basically what you're really saying to the client is the fact that you have been able to do a detailed assessment of their business and you're able to address certain things that will be of value to them, right? So as you're
Mhm.
developing a customer value proposition, you need to think about what will be the experience that will happen to the customer's operations. Will that experience be superior? Will it be equal to exactly what they're doing right now, or will it be inferior? Okay. And as you're developing a customer value proposition, you need to know who is the targeted customer, right? Who is
Mhm.
this organization? Who is this individual, right?
Yeah.
What is the specific time frame for delivering this proposition to them, right? When, how long will it take? Does it make sense? You need to know
Mhm.
in terms of, I'll be providing you the service. When is this going to take place? How long will it take, right?
Yeah.
And you need to think about it as the SMME. What does the SMME want the customer to do, right? For example, you would want them maybe
Mhm.
to do a training, a policy, a procedural change. You want them to you do certain plant modifications, whatever that looks like, right? And what is
Mhm.
the price that the customer must pay, right?
Yeah.
When you think
Yeah.
about this, these are questions that you're asking yourself as an organization as you're developing this customer value proposition in relation to how this that you want to propose to them will change the life of that particular client, right? So, does
Mhm.
that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, it does. Now, with regards to that being said, Nokwazi, how do you then conduct research on your new client in order to develop a winning value proposition for them?
Okay, perfect. Right. So, in order to be able to gather this information and this knowledge and this understanding of this particular client in order to develop the value
Hmm.
proposition, the first thing that you need to do as a business owner is to be able to understand the sector. This is when we're talking about industry sectors, right? And
Yeah.
you need to know in terms of, as you're doing research, in terms of who is this client, the prospect, that's what we call it. So you're going to study the sector, which is the industry. You're also going to study the individual, the organization, right? Because those are the key questions that we ask ourselves as we're developing the customer value proposition. We asked
Hmm.
ourselves just when we're discussing it in terms of what is the value experience that the client will receive? Who is the
Hmm.
targeted customer, meaning who's the organization or who is the individual? This is, in essence, the prospect selection criteria. Who is the prospect? So, when you study the industry, you will be able to understand in terms of the trends and market forces. For example, are they profitable in that industry? Is the growth, is there any type of change?
Um,
And as
mm,
you're studying this industry sector, you need to know and understand the procurement behavior. Are they transactor? Are they transactional? Or are they progressive in their approach? And this will be informed by how they're actually procuring services, right? You need to
mhm.
know if you're working in the built environment, the size of investment in plant, equipment, and infrastructure. You need to know as why are you pursuing a Mr. Price? They
Mhm.
have 1,079 stores. That tells you the size of potential work that sits in that particular portfolio. I'm just giving an example,
Yeah.
right? They've got 1,079 stores, they've got two distribution centers, they've got a head office in Durban. Now, if I am providing a service that will be a benefit to a Mr. Price, I would need to know in terms of the scope, right? The services that
Yeah.
I can offer them in relation to when I understand their plant, their equipment, their infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
You need to know in terms of, for example, a Mr. Price, there are services of outsourcing. In terms of, are they outsourcing or are they insourcing the services that you want to offer them, right?
Yeah.
And you need to also understand in that particular industry the level of competition, right? To
Mhm.
existing, who are the existing suppliers and
Mhm.
potential service providers that you can also perhaps look at it in terms of if they don't go with you, who else is an alternative, right? But you also
Yeah.
need to look at it in relation to case studies. This is how you do research in terms of an industry or a sector. So we will say in our business, we are focused on the corporate sector, we're focused on manufacturing, we're focused on retail. So we are
Mhm.
in constantly researching the trends and the market forces of those particular industries, the procurement behavior, the size of investment, plant, equipment, and infrastructure that they have, right?
Yeah.
The level of competition that's existing within the competitors that we have in that particular space. And then what
Yeah.
you then do is then you then zone in into that specific prospect, right? Who
Mm-hmm.
is this organization? Who is this individual, right? The way that you're able to do this research is to understand their current relationships, existing and
Mm-hmm.
potential. A lot of businesses that we want to do business with, they are already in relationship with somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you need to know at what level of that relationship does that relationship actually sit. You can't just
Mm-hmm.
come in and drop in a company profile and assume that you're going to get work when you haven't thoroughly researched this individual and organization that you want to do business with. You understand their current relationship. You also look
Mm-hmm.
at their outsourcing experience, right? Are they a mature client when it comes to outsourcing if you want them to procure a service from them from you, or are they what we would call like, at infancy level, right? And how do you determine that? If you want them to outsource to you and they've never outsourced, it means they don't have a mature experience in relation to outsourcing of services. Now
Yeah.
the discussion would have to change. You need to first sell to them the benefits of outsourcing
Mm-hmm.
before you can
Mm,
talk about the service that you want to provide to them. What will be the
yeah.
benefit of them changing their buying behavior?
Mm,
And as
mm,
we
mm.
talk about buying behavior, then their procurement behavior. Are they a transactor? Are they progressive in their approach, right? You also look at an
Mhm.
organization's financial viability, their potential revenues, the margins, right? We're so focused when a company says we are finished on 34 billion and we assume that there is so much that we could get from them. But that same organization could have ran at a dismal loss.
Yeah.
So, because they are listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange and because they've got websites where they've got this information available, you will be able, when you look at their financial statements, look at the revenue and also look at what is retained in terms of the margins, the
Mm,
profit,
yeah,
right?
yeah, sure. Mhm.
And then you
Yeah,
also look at their geographic location, right? I could talk about the most amazing best fitting organization that we can do business with, but they could be in the United States. Do we have right now capacity to service a client in the United States? That's what you need
mhm,
to ask yourself as an organization. The same
yeah,
way that even if you are focused on an individual that you're selling to, but they're outside of the geographic location where you exist, then automatically you need to look at your systems and processes to say, would you be able to get that merchandise to them, and what's the cost of being able to send that merchandise to them, vice versa the cost of producing it, right?
yeah,
And then
yeah.
you also, in that particular thing where you're looking at that individual organization, always look at the level of competition, right? Who is the current incumbent that is doing the service that you want to provide to that particular client, which will
Mm,
then give you an idea in terms of why would they do the change.
mhm, yeah, yeah.
So when you're looking at the sector and prospect selection criteria, there's certain aspects of what I'd like business owners and entrepreneurs to look at, the places where you can get the information. There's sources of information, right? In every industry that you're targeting, there's industry associations, right? For example, I work in the built environment. Our industry
Mhm,
association is SAFMA, right? It's the South African Facilities Management Association. When I understand what they're doing, I already have understanding of the industry sector,
yeah,
because they're going
yeah,
to have applications that they're going to do. They do an annual and sometimes quarterly events where you get together and they're informing the industry in terms of what they're doing. That's research. When I'm attending a cocktail function for SAFMA, it's a part of my research. It's part of me understanding what they're doing. what is happening in that particular sector, right? You look
Yeah.
at sector investigative journalists or commentators. In every industry, there's a commentator. There is someone that is constantly informing the public what's actually happening, right? But you
Yeah.
need to
Yeah.
understand like sector analysis briefs, right? Where do you get that? Financial statements that are announced on an annual basis and also on a quarterly performance basis and every 6 months for organizations. That gives us an understanding of that particular targeted client in that particular industry, how well they're performing, right? You
Mm.
look also like websites, you look at commercial research reports, you also look at, you speak to consultants and sectors, right, and speak to other SMMEs that are operating in that space. You need to be able to have a sector overview. If
Mm-hmm.
I am targeting the manufacturing sector, sitting here, I need to be able to know how big is the manufacturing sector in terms of potential work. How big is that
Yeah.
industry in terms of sector size, right? When I look at the gross domestic product and the information that tells us in terms of the sectors that are contributing to the GDP of South Africa, it will tell me
Mm.
which industries are performing well,
Mm-hmm.
right? You look at the
Yeah.
industry rules of thumbs and indicators. You look at main players, and you sort of like look at the sector trends and driving forces, right? Where's the growth happening in the manufacturing sector? Where's recession happening? Where is there stagnation? Where is there services attitude where there used to be scarcity and
I think I just lost your audio there. Are you still there, Nkwazi? All right. I think that I just lost Unokwazi there. Just touching on how to, conduct research on a new client in order to develop a winning value proposition. As she's joining us this morning to unlock all of that, a customer's value proposition. And we were just going to touch on, for her to give us a good example of a customer value proposition. Oh, I have you back. Fantastic. Because of the time, and I also see that we're having connectivity issues. Could you give us an example of a good customer value proposition?
Okay, so a good customer value proposition, right? So you've done your research, you understand the industry sector. You've also done
Yeah.
your research in understanding the target organization, right? You need to also look at your typical customer value drivers. What's driving the targeted clients, right? In terms of their decision to buy, right? You look at the
Mhm.
strategic value drivers, like the competitive strategy of their value proposition, their pricing, threats, and market forces. You look at their growth objectives. You look at the typical strategic value experiences that can be improved upon in terms of their line of work, right? For example, you
Yeah.
can reduce operational risk, you can help them save costs, you can help them free up the availability of plant and equipment. Those are just typical value drivers in terms of why they would make a decision to outsource. But you also look at the individual that you're selling to, right? In terms of what's
Mhm.
driving them to give you a meeting, what's driving them to be able to accept your company profile. So the personal value drivers are workload. They want to outsource because they cannot handle the capacity of work that is required in the operation. You look at complaints, frustration with the current service provider that they have, and this is why they're looking at outsourcing to another service provider. It could be also prestige and compensation. They're looking at saving costs. They're looking to be associated with an SMME because they want to be pro SMME development, right? There's quite a lot of
Yeah.
things because you must always look at the person that you're dealing with also has key performance indicators that they need to adhere to. So when they are seen to be doing a certain aspect of an intake of an SMME because it's part of a growth strategy for them to incorporate SMMEs in their value chain, then they would be performing well against their KPI. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so when
Yeah.
you look at
Yeah.
all of the very good ones, let's look at the bigger ones, right? Like Coca-Cola, right? They've always been clear in terms of what their value proposition is. It's to refresh the world and make a difference. That's what
Yeah.
Coca-Cola does,
Mhm.
right? And the
Yeah.
purpose is uniquely Coca-Cola's. It's why they exist. They're not trying to build an IT infrastructure company. They're trying to trying to refresh the world and make a difference. And when you
Come on.
think about Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
that's why they're at every corner of every
Hmm.
part of the globe doing the
Yeah.
same thing, refreshing the world. And
Come
this is
on.
why it when you understand what they're doing and you believe that you can help them in achieving their value proposition in the marketplace of refreshing the world, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't matter. It could be through a distribution that you're assisting them with, a distribution channel. It could be through
Hmm.
technology. It could be through how their infrastructure will look, because it will be in a way that represents what they stand for, refreshing the world. Whatever it looks like, you need to first understand the individual and the organization, right? And so
Hmm.
another interesting one that we all know about, what we should know about at least when we're in business, is the value proposition for Apple, right?
Mm.
Apple's value proposition is to provide premium, high quality, innovative, and user friendly technology products and services that enrich the
Yeah.
lives of its customers. And that's exactly what they
Mhm.
do. They're not trying to do
Mm.
anything outside of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it becomes of paramount importance in this new age that when we're going to talk about conducting research for your clients, you have to take on the task of being able to start being a lot more in depth in your understanding the potential person that you want to do business with, whether in the form
Yeah.
of an organization or in the form of an individual. A lot of the time, why we are struggling to move away from this small mentality, SMME mentality, I'm small, I'm just like a little tuck shop, is if to
Yeah.
operate in a global presence and a global mindset, you need to start understanding in terms of what value are you going to deliver for that organization? What value are you going to deliver to that individual? And why should they go out of their way to give you the contract, to give you the work, to give you that purchase order? You
Mm.
need to
Sure.
be able to clearly articulate this in a way that adds value. What is the benefit to the organization that you want to do business with?
Yeah, sure. I love this topic, but because of time, I do have to cut us short here. Quickly, for those who are wondering, where can our listeners get a hold of you and possibly, continue this chat on a consulting basis?
Okay, so fantastic. So you catch us at Unlocked with Nokwazi, at In Season with Sake every Wednesday at 10:15. And I'm
Yeah.
available at Nokwazi at alwaysaygroup.co.za. And my cell phone number for the Business and Entrepreneurship Upcoming Conference is 071 177
All right, fantastic. I will give that number again because I lost you at the four last stitches. But thank you so much for joining us. You're looking absolutely amazing, and I cannot wait to have you back live in studio. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Fantastic.
Fantastic. Have a
Right.
blessed, beautiful,
Thank
wonderful
you.
day.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Right.
you.
It is